So let's take a zoom out, get the macro view. After the ECB, of course, lowered interest rates for the second time this year. Luca Santos from ACY Securities joins me now. Hey, Luca.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Long time I don't see you, actually.
I know, it has been a long time, so it's a pleasure. Okay, so the ECB did cut rates. What do you make of Lagarde's comments that it's not on a predetermined path?
Correct. So actually, everyone was a bit scared of they cutting 60 basis points. But I think it was a misunderstanding on the market because most of the economic calendars was talking about a 60 basis points cut. So I think it was a mistake, mistyping from those business. But anyways, they cut 25 basis points. She opens, it was very interesting because she opened up the meeting saying that, yes, we've cut 25 basis points, but that doesn't mean that we are predefining a rate cut path. So in my opinion, this is kind of hawkish from what the market was expecting because the market was talking about, yes, they will have another cut this year, another 25 this year. So yesterday plus another one maybe in December or November. My opinion is that if she mentioned that, and she mentioned as well the inflation, the core inflation, the overall inflation is at 2.2%, so that's very good, 0.2 higher than what is the target. But what the central bank actually matters is the core inflation that was in 2.8%. So 0.8% higher than expected and 0.6% higher than the overall. So it's still a lot of to be done from the ECB. My opinion is that they probably won't cut another 25 this year, and maybe they cut 125 basis points in the first quarter of next year. Okay,
so we are though on a gradual cutting cycle.
Correct.
In
Europe. That's correct. Yeah.
To compensate for slowing growth.
And that makes actually yesterday for those who trade euro, you've made seem when she was talking, when we got the release of a 25 basis point cut, that was okay, nothing happened. But on a few minutes later, when she started talking, I think it was 10:45 p.m. here in Sydney, market sort of liked what she said. And euro was gaining strength against the US dollar. So we had euro dollar trading at 1.10, 1.1010, something around those numbers, and now we have nearly 1.1070. So a big jump on euro dollar from London and New York session now to starting Asia session this morning on a Friday.
Okay, so that's Europe. What about the United States? I mean, this week has really solidified expectations for a 25 basis point next week. So how do markets trade into that?
Really interesting as well. There was a time 2 weeks ago that the market was specifying even a 50 basis point cut from the Fed. That leads me to think that if the market was specifying a 50, the CMA Fed Watch 2 was specifying a 50 basis point cut, the market was expecting the inflation to be already lower. But when we got the releases of the number from the US CPI, everything was very in line with the forecast, except the core CPI that was 0.1% higher than expected. Again, what the central bank prefers to look is the core CPI because it excludes the energy and the food prices. And this is what they have more control to see if the monetary policy that they're doing is actually working or not. In essence, most probably, yes, of course, I think it was 80, last time I looked yesterday, 86% precified already for a 25 basis points cut from the Fed next month. What it will be more interesting is what Jerome Powell will say than what we already know that's going to cut.
Yeah, okay.
Most probably we're going to have a very weak US dollar. So Australian dollar against US dollar can do a little bit of a up move in there. But at the moment, yes, I'm more looking to the possibilities are more into euro dollar trading with all this divergence between the central banks, between the ECB and between the Fed. I do believe that the Fed will be more dovish than the ECB, so leading to a longer euro dollar, so higher euro dollar prices.
So that's the trade out of this?
Yeah, I think that's when we look to this scenario, it's pretty simple to understand that the Fed has a lot much to do than the ECB. Therefore, they will have to be, Jerome Powell will have to be very, very careful on what he says. Anything, the market will be very sensitive to the downside on the US dollar. we saw yesterday, right? Euro is much more stronger than the US dollar at this moment. So yes, believing that euro dollar long would be a good trade until 1.12, maybe until end of this year, maybe the first quarter of next year. But yes, euro dollar long is it's my forecast, I would say.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thanks for the trade. Just quickly on the Aussie. So we have a Chinese data dump tomorrow. Do you anticipate we'll see any reaction in the Australian dollar to that?
We've seen Aussie dollar very weak in the last couple of weeks. So for those who have business around the overseas, bringing money to Australia, that's a good one. I do believe Australian dollar is trading at 67.30. I had a target at 67 when I came here last Friday. Sorry, 2 Fridays ago. So yes, anything related to China will have an impact on Australia. So China PMI, China anything balance of payment will lead to a movement on Australian dollar. My honest opinion is Australian dollar may have a little bit of a bearish move to still happen. But next year, most probably, we will have more long than downside, more upside than the downside from Australian dollar.